Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Lagos, there lived a young billionaire named Kelvin. He was the embodiment of every girl's dream, tall, dark, and handsome, with an irresistible smile and a sharp sense of humor. But beneath his dazzling exterior lay a heart as cold as stone. Kelvin carried a shadow from his childhood, a painful memory of abuse at the hands of his elder sisters when he was only 7 years old. From that day, he made a vow, never to love a woman and, worse, to inflict upon them the pain he believed they deserved. Every weekend, a new woman would arrive at Kelvin's luxurious mansion, drawn like a moth to a flame. He needed only to flash a smile or utter a few sweet words, and his chosen target would willingly follow. But once he got what he wanted, his warmth turned to ice. He would sever all ties, leaving them heartbroken and confused, their dreams of love and happiness dashed. One fateful evening, a woman named Ngozi came to Kelvin's grand home. As she stepped into the mansion, she tried to keep her composure, though her curious eyes betrayed her awe at the opulence around her. "Welcome, Ngozi," Kelvin greeted her with his signature disarming smile. "Make yourself comfortable. What can I offer you, champagne or red wine?" Ngozi hesitated, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied him. "Champagne," she replied casually, her tone light and unbothered. As they sat together, their conversation began to flow. Kelvin leaned into his usual routine, flirty quips and seductive glances, but he quickly realized something unusual. Ngozi wasn't like the others. She was confident and carefree. She was doing more of the flirting and was throwing seductive glances at him. There was an effortless charisma about her that made Kelvin, for the first time, feel uneasy. "Kelvin," she said suddenly, her tone playful yet decisive. "Mind showing me where your bathroom is? This champagne is working faster than I thought." Kelvin chuckled, his ego swelling at the thought of her being at ease in his space. "Of course, follow me," he said, leading her down a marble-tiled hallway illuminated by soft golden lights. He opened a door, revealing an enormous bathroom that looked more like a spa, complete with a sunken tub, glass walls, and intricate detailing. "Here you go. Don't get lost," he joked, flashing his irresistible smile. Ngozi laughed, brushing past him. "I think I can manage." She set a camera at a hidden corner of the bathroom as she had a long bath, thinking Kelvin would come in and try to force himself on her, but he didn't show up. Minutes later, she reappeared, her confidence undimmed. They resumed their evening, and Ngozi seemed more engaging than ever, laughing at his jokes, leaning in closer, her perfume filling the space between them. The night flowed effortlessly, leading to what Kelvin would later describe as the best night of his life. Surprisingly, Kelvin didn't touch her, and Ngozi, having too much to drink, slept off, and Kelvin covered her up and stirred at her as she sleeps. This was the first time he felt a real connection with someone and wanted to get to know her. As dawn broke, Kelvin stirred, reaching for the warmth of Ngozi beside him. But the bed was empty, his brow furrowed, and he sat up, scanning the room. "Ngozi?" he called, his voice hoarse from the night before. No response. He walked into the living room. His heart stopped when he saw the empty space on the glass shelf where his prized diamond wristwatch once sat. His eyes darted to the drawer where he kept a huge amount of money he just received from the government for a project. A drawer now ominously ajar. Ripping it open, he found nothing but a folded piece of paper. His hands trembled as he opened it to find a note scrawled in perfect handwriting. "Hi, Kelvin. God saved you for not falling into my trap for the almost perfect evening. Consider this kindness compared to what you truly deserve, for all the hearts you've broken. To be more specific, my sister Ada, you almost ruined. The only reason you're still breathing is because she survived. You don't deserve a good woman, and I pray you never find one. If I ever see your face, you're going to jail. P.S. That charm of yours, it's good, but not good enough for me. Cheers, Ngozi." Kelvin stared at the note, his mind reeling. She had played him, the master manipulator. His jaw clenched, his pride stinging worse than the financial loss. For the first time in his entire life, Kelvin felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Not anger, but a nagging sense of vulnerability. As he stood there, clutching the note, he vowed to find Ngozi. Little did he know, Ngozi was already far from Lagos, smiling to herself as she watched the city fade into the horizon from the window of a luxury train heading to Umapu village. Long ago in the humble village of Umapu, there lived a young lady named Ngozi. She shared a small, weathered hut with her mother, Mama Ngozi, and her younger sister, Ada. Life had not been kind to their family. Mama Ngozi, abandoned by her husband, carried the weight of raising her daughters alone. Every morning, she would lead Ngozi and Ada to the farmlands of wealthier villagers, where they toiled under the blazing sun just to earn enough for a single meal. Despite their hardship, Mama Ngozi always clung to hope, instilling in her children the values of hard work, morality, and faith. "Everything will be okay," she would often say, her voice steady, but her eyes heavy with exhaustion. One scorching afternoon, Mama Ngozi sat outside their hut, vigorously turning fufu for their evening meal. Suddenly, Ada came running, a bright smile lighting her face. Clutched in her hand was a piece of paper that flapped with her hurried movements. "Mama," Ada called breathlessly. "Mama, I have good news." Ngozi, who had been sitting inside mending a torn dress, rushed out, curious about her sister's excitement. Mama Ngozi straightened up, wiping her hands on her wrapper. "What is it, my daughter?" "Mama, I got admission into Lagos State University to study medicine and surgery," Ada exclaimed, her voice trembling with joy. Mama Ngozi froze for a moment, the words sinking in. Then, in a burst of emotion, she leaped to her feet, her laughter spilling into the warm air. She clapped her hands and began to dance, her feet moving to a rhythm only her heart could hear. "You mean my daughter will become a doctor?" Mama Ngozi asked, her voice nearly cracking. "Yes, Mama," Ada cried, tears of joy streaming down her face. As they celebrated, Ngozi stood motionless. Her face was unreadable, her gaze distant. Mama Ngozi noticed and placed a gentle hand on her eldest daughter's shoulder. "Ngozi, why aren't you happy for your sister? Can't you see God has finally answered our prayers? Ada will become a graduate and take us out of this suffering. Mama, don't you see? The same thing that happened to me is happening again. I got admission 3 years ago, but we had no money. No one could help us, and my dream died before it began. I've made peace with that, Mama, but Ada, she's brilliant. She always comes first in her class. Are we going to let her gift go to waste too?" Tears welled in Mama Ngozi's eyes, spilling over as she clutched both daughters to her chest. Ada joined her, weeping openly. Days turned into nights, and as the week of registration approached, no money had come. One morning, Ngozi found Ada sitting beneath the old mango tree near their hut, her face buried in her hands. "Why are you crying again, Ada?" Ngozi asked, her voice gentle but firm. "Crying won't solve anything. God will make a way." "When, Sis Ngozi? How? It's 1 week to registration, and we don't even have transport money, let alone school fees. How can we keep hoping when every door seems closed? I'm tired, sister. Tired of struggling. Maybe it's better I just die than live like this." "Don't talk like that," Ngozi whispered fiercely. "I promise you, Ada, what happened to me won't happen to you. You will go to school next week. I don't know how, but I will find a way." The next morning, Ngozi sat under the shade of a mango tree, her face twisted with worry. A flurry of dark thoughts clouded her mind, but amidst the chaos, one plan emerged clearer than the rest. She broke open her savings, counted the meager notes with trembling hands, and set off for the bustling marketplace. There, under the vibrant awnings of traders, she purchased a set of expensive, revealing clothes she'd never dreamed of wearing in her quiet, modest life. That evening, she slipped away to Abazu, a neighboring village close to Umapu. Her destination was a dimly lit bar frequented by men with loose morals and heavy wallets. As she entered, her stomach churned with unease, her palms slick with sweat. She sat in a corner, hoping her new attire would catch attention. At first, a few men approached her, but their rough manners and crass words repelled her, and she rejected them outright. Just as she began to question her decision, a middle-aged man with an air of quiet affluence entered the bar. His tailored suit and gold-rimmed glasses spoke of wealth. He spotted Ngozi almost immediately and approached her with a confidence that made her heart race. Unlike the others, he was polite, measured, and attentive. It wasn't long before Ngozi gave him her attention. When dawn broke, the man handed her a sum far beyond her expectations. Before heading home, she hid the revealing clothes deep inside her bag before stepping into the village. She was met by the sound of her mother's muffled sobs, with Ada sitting beside her, trying to console her. "Mama, why are you crying? Please stop. I have good news," Ngozi said, her voice trembling but feigning cheer. "That's why I couldn't come home yesterday." "Ngozi, where were you? Why didn't you send word? What good news could keep you away all night?" "Mama, I couldn't call you because you don't have a phone. But guess what? I got you one." Her mother stared at the phone, incredulous. "Ngozi, where did you get the money for this?" "Calm down, Mama. Let me explain," Ngozi began, weaving a lie she'd rehearsed on the way home. She handed her mother a bundle of cash, her smile now more confident. "Now we can save quickly for Ada's school fees." Her mother's tears transformed into laughter and praise. Ada, overwhelmed with emotion, threw her arms around Ngozi. "Thank you, big sister. I promise I won't let you down," Ada said earnestly. Ngozi hugged her back, though her heart ached with guilt. "I know you won't, Ada. You'll make us proud." From that day on, Ngozi returned to Abazu every night, pursuing her secret life under the guise of working for a missionary. In the space of 1 week, she gathered enough money for Ada's school fees. On the morning of Ada's departure, the family stood together at the train station. Ngozi handed her sister a bag filled with food and enough money for registration and upkeep. "I love you, sis," Ada said, hugging her so tightly Ngozi could barely breathe. Ngozi chuckled, prying herself free. "Go now before you miss your train, or do you want to choke me with hugs?" They laughed, and Ada waved goodbye as the train rumbled away, her face glowing with joy. For a moment, everything felt right. On the walk home, Mama Ngozi broke the silence. "Ngozi, I think I should go thank your generous boss. This blessing is too much. God works in mysterious ways, but I must show my gratitude." Ngozi stiffened but quickly composed herself. "No, Mama. He's a very private man, but I'll be sure to pass along your gratitude." Ngozi was the pride of Abazu village. Her beauty was the talk of the town, and her success brought a sense of awe and envy. By night, she was a radiant figure, known to captivate all who crossed her path, but by day, she was a humble, unassuming woman. Gone were the days of struggling in a small thatched hut. Now she had moved Mama Ngozi to a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment. Every school term, Ngozi dutifully paid Ada's fees. During holidays, Ada would return home, sharing stories of university life and academic success. Each tale filled Ngozi with joy and hope, knowing her sacrifices were yielding results. One fateful evening, Ngozi prepared to leave the house as usual, her actions shrouded in the mystery that surrounded her nighttime ventures. Ada followed her sister through the shadows, her heart pounding with each step. Ngozi made her way to a motel at the edge of Abazu. Ada hesitated at the gate, a mix of fear and curiosity battling within her. She waited, watching. After a while, she saw Ngozi emerge from one of the rooms, her attire far different from the modest clothes she wore at home. The revealing outfit, paired with the confidence in her stride as she entered an old Mercedes-Benz, confirmed Ada's suspicions. Her heart sank. The realization of what Ngozi was doing to support her education overwhelmed her, and silent tears streamed down her face. By morning, Ngozi returned home, now dressed in her usual modest attire, unaware of what Ada had witnessed. To her surprise, she found Ada packing her bags. "Ada, you're leaving already? I thought school didn't resume until next week." "Yes, sis," Ada replied quietly, sadness etched on her face. "I need to go early so I can start reading for the semester." Mama Ngozi and Ngozi saw her off to the station, as was their tradition. Before Ada boarded the train, Ngozi handed her some cash. "Here, take this. I'll send more to your account before the week is out," Ngozi said cheerfully. Ada shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. Ngozi laughed, misunderstanding her sister's emotions. "Ah, so you won't take it because it's not enough, eh? You should have told me you were leaving early. I'd have been better prepared." Ada forced a smile through her tears and boarded the train. As it began to pull away, she waved goodbye. Ngozi and Mama Ngozi waved back, laughing and commenting, "Our future doctor misses us already." But as the train disappeared into the horizon, Ada's tears continued to fall, carrying the weight of a secret she could never share with anyone. Ada's dedication bore fruit. She became the first student in a decade to achieve a first-class degree in medicine and surgery. Now, in her final year, Ada was a beacon of hope and inspiration, admired by many in the faculty. One sunny afternoon, Ada sat in the school canteen, quietly enjoying her meal, unaware that she was the subject of a hushed conversation at a nearby table. 2 men observed her closely. One was Dr. Bayo, her esteemed lecturer. and the other was his charming friend, Mr. Kelvin. Dr. Bio leaned closer to Kelvin, gesturing subtly toward Ada. "That's Ada," he said, a note of pride in his voice. "The most intelligent student in the faculty. She's a first-class student in medicine and surgery, something no one has achieved in the last 10 years. Kelvin followed Dr. Bio's gaze. His curiosity piqued. "Really? She must be remarkable," he remarked, his tone laced with intrigue. "She is," Dr. Bio affirmed. "You won't believe this. She once corrected my calculations in class, and she was right. She's going to make a name for herself in the medical field. Mark my words." Kelvin, a well-known figure in Lagos's social circles, with a reputation as both a successful entrepreneur and a notorious heartbreaker, couldn't take his eyes off Ada. His smile widened. "I think I like her," he said casually. "I'm going to talk to her." Dr. Bio's expression darkened and he grabbed Kelvin's arm before he could stand. "Don't," he warned sternly. "She's in her final year. She's worked too hard to get here. If you're going to mess with her, walk away now." Kelvin chuckled, brushing off the concern. "Relax, Bio. I just want her to experience what true love feels like," he said, his voice dripping with charm. But Dr. Bio's eyes remained fixed on Kelvin, his concern unwavering. He knew his friend too well. As Kelvin straightened his jacket and prepared to approach Ada, the tension at the table grew palpable. Ada, still unaware, continued eating, her mind occupied with thoughts of her final year exams and the bright future she envisioned for herself. "Hello, my name is Kelvin," he said, easing himself onto the bench beside her. "May I know your name, Your Majesty?" Ada, taken aback by his boldness but intrigued by his respectful yet playful tone, found herself smiling, a rare occurrence in such situations. "My name is Ada. How can I help you, sir?" Kelvin's smile widened and his eyes sparkled with sincerity. "I would love to get to know you better. May I have your number?" For reasons she couldn't fully understand, Ada felt a surge of trust and gave him her contact without hesitation. From that moment, Kelvin began showering her with attention and affection. Within days, mysterious deliveries started arriving at Ada's hostel. Boxes of chocolates, bouquets of fresh roses, and even beautifully wrapped books were sent her way. The sight of the delivery van at the hostel gate became a daily occurrence, stirring a whirlwind of envy among her fellow students. Ogom, her roommate, exclaimed one evening as she examined a lavish bracelet from one of the packages. "This boyfriend of yours is so generous. You mean you've only known him for a month and he's already doing all this?" Ada chuckled, a slight blush creeping onto her cheeks. "Yes, my dear. He even comes to the canteen every lunch hour just to see me. You're the luckiest girl in the faculty." "You're not just the smartest," Ogom said with a playful grin, "but you've also managed to snag every girl's dream man." Ada's days became brighter and her nights sweeter as her conversations with Kelvin deepened. They spent hours on the phone each evening, talking about everything and nothing. One night, as the moonlight spilled through her window, Ada felt a truth stirring within her heart. "Kelvin," she whispered into the phone, her voice tender, "I think I'm in love with you." There was a pause on the other end before Kelvin responded with a soft chuckle. "How sure are you that what you feel for me is love?" Ada smiled, feeling a mix of vulnerability and joy. "I know, because you're the first person I think of when I wake up and the last before I sleep. I know because I'm supposed to be studying for my exams right now, but I've spent 4 hours talking to you instead." Kelvin's laughter was deep and reassuring. "Then you should come see me tomorrow," he said gently. "I want to kiss your soft lips and make you feel like a woman." His words sent shivers through Ada's body, awakening a longing she had never known. Blushing fiercely, she agreed to meet him the next morning, her heart racing with anticipation and a hint of trepidation. She stood at the grand gates, her breath catching as she took in the opulence before her. She had known Kelvin was wealthy, but she had never imagined this level of grandeur. The gatekeeper led her inside, and Ada's nerves gave way to awe as she stepped into the mansion's lavish interior. "Have a seat, Ada," Kelvin called out from behind her, his tone dripping with mockery she didn't yet recognize. "Feel at home, Your Majesty. What can I offer you? Champagne or red wine?" Ada hesitated. "Just water," she replied softly, feeling out of place. The night unfolded quickly, and Kelvin's demeanor shifted. The sweet, attentive man Ada had spoken to on the phone seemed to vanish, replaced by someone colder, harsher, and more demanding. When she confided in him, trembling, that she was a virgin, she hoped he would be gentle. Instead, Kelvin dismissed her vulnerability, taking what he wanted with no regard for her pain. The night was a blur of agony for Ada, her innocence stolen and her trust betrayed. When she woke up the next morning, her body was sore and blood was all over the bed. She called out for Kelvin, but the mansion was silent. Desperate and hurting, she reached for her bag to call him, only to find a note accompanied by some cash. "Please, clean up the mess you made on my bed. Take the money for your transport. I don't want to see you when I return." The words struck Ada like a thunderbolt, and her knees buckled beneath her. She sat there stunned, clutching the note as tears streamed down her face. Dragging herself home, Ada collapsed on the floor of her shared dorm room, tears choking her words. Her roommate, Ogum, returned to find her in this state, and after much coaxing, Ada recounted the events of the night. Ogum was horrified and furious, unable to comprehend how someone could be so cruel. "Kelvin?" Ogum exclaimed when Ada showed her a picture. "That's the man you've been seeing?" "Ada, if only I had known. Kelvin is notorious, a spoilt billionaire's son who thinks he owns everyone and everything. He's heartless." Shame consumed Ada as Ogum spoke, and her tears flowed freely. Days passed, but Ada's wounds, both physical and emotional, refused to heal. The pain in her heart overshadowed even the ache in her body. Her final exams loomed, but she couldn't bring herself to study or even leave her bed. Ogum, determined to help, went out to buy antibiotics and tried to cheer her up, but Ada remained inconsolable. "You need to put yourself together," Ogum urged one evening. "Our first paper is tomorrow. Ada, you can't let him ruin your future." But the next morning, as Ada dragged herself to the exam hall, she was a shadow of her former self. Her steps were heavy, her mind clouded, and her body weak. She barely managed to take her seat before the world around her began to spin. The last thing she heard before everything went black was the panicked voices of her classmates. Ada was rushed to the university clinic, her condition dire. It was then that Ogum made a difficult decision. Ignoring Ada's earlier pleas, she picked up her phone and called Ngozi, Ada's older sister. Upon arriving at the school clinic, Ngozi found Ada lying pale and weak, a drip attached to her arm. When she inquired about her sister's condition, the doctor explained that Ada was simply overworked and needed rest. But Ngozi wasn't convinced. Later, Ogum, Ada's closest friend, arrived at the clinic and shared what had transpired. For the first time in years, Ngozi's strong exterior cracked, and tears filled her eyes. Ada, her soft and loving sister, had been betrayed. After a week in the clinic, Ada was discharged, but the damage was done. She had missed her exams, and her dreams of graduating alongside her classmates were shattered. Despite her physical recovery, Ada was tormented by the question that haunted her soul. Why did Kelvin hurt me so deeply when all I did was love him? Feeling lost and ashamed, she packed her bags and returned to their village. Back home, Ada hoped to find solace, but the sight of her elder sister, who had sacrificed so much to send her to school, only deepened her guilt. Ngozi tried her best to comfort her, assuring Ada that she could retake her exams. But her words, no matter how soothing, failed to heal Ada's broken spirit. Each evening, Ngozi would find Ada sitting under the mango tree, tears streaming down her face, her untouched food growing cold on the table. One day, as Ada sat weeping beneath the tree, Ngozi could take it no longer. She stormed over and confronted her sister. "Why do you cry like this? Why won't you eat? Do you love that boy so much that you've forgotten who you are? I warned you about men like him. Look at our father. He abandoned our mother for another woman, and now you're letting another man destroy you too." Ada didn't respond, her sobs growing louder. Anger flared in Ngozi's chest, and she stormed into the house. She grabbed her phone and called Ogum. "Ogum, are you still in school?" Ngozi asked. "Yes," Ogum replied cautiously. "Meet me at the bar near the university gate." "I'm coming to Lagos." Ngozi arrived at the bar dressed in a striking red dress, her confidence commanding the room. She ordered drinks and waited. When Ogum arrived, Ngozi leaned forward and spoke, her voice laced with determination. "Tell me everything about Kelvin. It's time he paid for what he's done to my sister." Ogum hesitated for a moment, but eventually relented, sharing all she knew about Kelvin. his lavish lifestyle, his penchant for breaking hearts, and his favorite spots in town where he picked up new girls each weekend. It's perfect timing, it's weekend. I'll be on my way, she announced, standing up with renewed purpose. Upon arriving at the vibrant bar, her gaze quickly fell upon Kelvin, who was seated with a group of jovial friends. To confirm his identity, she discreetly checked his photo on her phone. Satisfied, she approached the guys and took a seat nearby, exuding confidence. As anticipated, Kelvin soon made his way to Ngozi, and they engaged in a pleasant conversation. With a casual ease, she shared that she was new in town, looking for a hotel to stay for the night. A hint of flirtation danced in the air as Kelvin offered her a proposition. "You could stay over at my place if you'd like." "Thanks," Ngozi replied, her mind racing with thoughts of her elaborate plan. As they arrived at Kelvin's lavish mansion, an unexpected thought struck her. "I just remembered I left something at the bar. I need to go grab it," she said, feigning urgency. "I can take you there." Kelvin offered, flashing a confident smile. "No, it's fine. I can find my way back. I'll be quick," Ngozi insisted, determined to execute her plan. She ventured to the nearest mall, quickly obtaining a small camera before returning to Kelvin's mansion. Little did he know, Ngozi was already far from Lagos, smiling to herself as she watched the city fade into the horizon from the window of a luxury train heading to Umapu village. But as she neared her home, a cacophony of wails pierced the air, drawing her towards an unfolding tragedy. Panic-stricken, she sprinted to find her sister Ada and their mother, lifeless on the ground. "What happened?" she demanded, her voice trembling. A neighbor, a middle-aged man with sorrow in his eyes, stepped forward. "Your sister Ada, she hung herself in the farmland. Upon hearing the news, your mother was devastated and had a heart attack." He handed Ngozi a crumpled note. "We found this at the scene." With trembling hands, Ngozi unfolded the paper, her eyes scanning the heartbreaking words. "Dear sister, I'm sorry I let you and Mama down. I'm sorry for letting your sacrifice for me to go to school be in vain. I'm sorry I'm not strong like you. I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm sorry I don't know how to make the pain stop. Please take good care of Mama and ask her to forgive me. If there's a next life, you would still be my sister. I love you, sis." Ngozi fell on her knees, and her heart stopped beating for a moment as an uncontrollable tears rolled down her face. She had lost the two most important people in her life. Never give your heart out to anyone until they are tried and true. Time reveals everything. And remember, when you throw a stone into the river, you never know how deep it goes.